Reading is a pastime that most people, if not everyone, can enjoy. From hieroglyphics to paperbacks to ebooks to fan fictions, people have been consuming the knowledge provided in stories since the beginning of their existence. There are a myriad of genres that can delve deep into subjects and give insight to people through imagined experiences who otherwise would have no understanding of the particular matter featured. But what happens when providing information comes at a dire cost? Born on January 21, 1944, on a U.S. Army base in Michigan, Jack Henry Abbott was born to a Chinese woman and an American soldier. When he was younger, Abbott would get into a lot of trouble with teachers and other adults, and later was sent to a reform school as a result of his bad behavior also reflecting itself against the law. When he was 21, he stabbed a fellow inmate to death and was given a sentence of 3 to 20 years for the offense, on top of already serving time for forgery. In 1971, his sentence was extended by adding on 19 years after escaping and robbing a Colorado bank. And even when he was behind bars, he was often rowdy and disrespectful, and frequently spent time in solitary confinement. After reading that Norman Mailer was writing about Gary Gilmore, a convicted killer, Abbott offered to write his story of incarceration. To this favor, Mailer agreed. They would later go on to publish In the Belly of the Beast, which consisted of Abbott's notes to Mailer that provided a record of his experiences while incarcerated. On page 7, an excerpt read, "I am at this moment 37 years old. Since age 12, I have been free the sum total of 9.5 months. And in another portion, he wrote, I keep waiting for the years to give me a sense of humor, but so far, that has evaded me completely." He was released on parole in 1980 and was quite popular for his writing, and as Mailer supported his attempts to gain parole, he was met with a lot of backlash. He told the Buffalo News that his involvement was another episode in my life in which I can find nothing to cheer about or nothing to take pride in. Six weeks after getting out of prison, Abbott visited a cafe in Manhattan where he got into an altercation with the owner's son-in-law, named Richard Adon. Adon had told Abbott that the restroom was for staff only. Because of this, Abbott lost his temper and stabbed the 22-year-old in the chest, killing him. The day after, July 19th, the New York Times ran a positive review of In the Belly of the Beast, oblivious of the crime he committed just a day prior. Reviewer Terence Dupre wrote that the book was awesome, brilliant, perversely ingenious. Its impact is indelible, and as an articulation of penal nightmare, it is completely compelling. After some time evading law enforcement, he was convicted of manslaughter and given 15 years to life in January 1982. Abbott would only end up receiving $12,500 in an advance fee for In the Belly of the Beast, as Adon's widow successfully sued him for $7.5 million in damages, so she would receive all the book sales. He was barred from profiting under the Son of Sam law, a New York statute that prevents criminals from receiving profits from crimes they've committed. It is important to mention that Richard Adon was an actor and playwright, and the bulk of people feeling the buzz of Abbott's work, being young aspiring creatives, makes the case even sadder. Just starting to gain recognition for his talent, shortly before his death, his first play had been accepted for production by the La Mama Theater Company. Mailer, Abbott's book editor, and editor of the New York Review of Books, Robert Silvers, received criticism from the public for having supported his release from prison. But the young waiter's father-in-law, Henry Howard, insisted that it was the justice system, not Mailer, that was responsible. Howard stated, "I'm not angry at Mailer or Random House. It's their job to recognize writing talent, and they saw it in Jack Abbott. My quarrel is with the prison authorities, with the establishment. It's their job to decide who goes out of prison, and not because of some pressure from great writers or publishers. In 1987, Abbott would publish another book titled My Return, which failed massively as it contained no real remorse for the crimes he committed, and largely featured self-pity. The contents blamed the prison system for why he committed crimes and stated that he wanted an apology from society for how he was treated. Due to his lack of remorse, his application for parole in 2001 was denied. In 2002, on February 10th, using his bedsheets and shoelaces as a makeshift noose, Abbott hanged himself in his cell. He also left a suicide note, but the contents have since remained classified. In response, his family was not convinced he had taken his own life, and believed that he had been murdered. After all, someone with such recognition was bound to have enemies from every walk of life. His sister told a reporter he wouldn't have killed himself that way. However, no evidence would turn up to prove that someone else had a hand in his death.
Why do I look upon writing as this is my task as a writer? Because I want to be virtuous too. And this is the way in which I'm virtuous. If I extend human understanding, then that's the most virtuous act I am capable of. He got out through the efforts of a number of writers, myself most prominent in that. And something like 6 weeks after he came out of jail, he was living at a halfway house, he killed a guy with a knife on the street. And I, of course, was the one most directly responsible for it.
Back up, gentlemen, please.
I am not trying to avoid my own responsibility in this. I consider it large. But how I would do it differently, I don't know. I had a debt to Abbott that was sizable. Mr. Abbott helped me a great deal with the Executioner's Song. I came to understand Gary Gilmore better because of the letters that Abbott wrote to me. And Abbott wrote with a real generosity of spirit. He never held back. He gave me all his knowledge. Writers tend to be very stingy. He gave me all he had. When I say to him, how do you want me to use it? He said, use it any way you want.
What had happened is I'd shown his letters to other people, and they were printed in the New York Review of Books. They were wonderful letters. And then there was a book for it, at Random House, actually. And the book came out. And, you know, and he got out through the efforts of a number of writers, myself most prominent in that. And then his book came out about 4 weeks after he came out of jail. Well, I didn't feel responsible because I'd gotten him out of jail, but I felt responsible in another way, because he'd been in jail for so much of his life that he had absolutely no habits for the outside. It was like being thrown into the Turkish army overnight. There you are, you're in the Turkish army, you don't speak Turkish. You'd never been in the army before. You don't know what to do. So in that sense, I knew that Jack needed a lot of help. And what he really needed was somebody who would spend a prodigious amount of time with him every night, see him, live with him. Live with him the way someone in AA lives with a drunk. You see, they're not only the big brother for the drunk, but they're with that drunk every minute that the drunk needs them. I wasn't doing that. So when the crime occurred, because I had just been hoping things would work out all right, when the crime occurred, I knew that I had a responsibility on that one.
There's an attitude now in America, let's bring on the law and order, let's get rid of all these criminals, all these people who knife people, who shoot people. It's too easy. The fact that, let me finish since I started this. The fact of the matter is that this country right now is in a situation where the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And since we have had unstable social conditions for 20 years anyway, this is likely to aggravate them. If it aggravates them, it's going to increase the intensity of the demand for law and order. And if that happens, we're going straight toward fascism. So I'll just say that those of you who keep yelling for law and order at all costs, just recognize that what you're really asking for is fascism. And maybe you secretly want it. But don't kid yourself what you're asking for, because that'll be it.
After his death, Mailer stated, "His life was tragic from beginning to end. I never knew a man who had a worse life."